Hello, hello. Good morning, good evening, and good night, depending on where you are. And welcome to the City Council Forum on Culture and Arts for Manhattan Districts 1, 3, 5, and 6. We know that there's a lot going on and that you're all navigating through a lot with Zoom and lives. So we really want to say thank you for taking your time to be here with us. I am Melanie Green. I am a choreographer and artist and also the director of programs at New Yorkers for Culture and Arts. We are a cultural advocacy organization working to ensure a vibrant future for culture and arts for all New Yorkers. I am currently coming to you from former Choctaw and Chicamacha land. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a Black woman with my hair sort of poof coiffed up, and I'm wearing an Abbey Road Beatles t-shirt at the moment. So tonight we have ASL interpretation as well as closed captioning if you are inside of the Zoom platform. If you want to access that, you can click on the CC at the bottom of your screen. And also just know that the chat is open both in Zoom and also in our YouTube format. So hello, YouTube folks. We just ask that you please be respectful in the chats, no hate speech, no intolerable speech. But what we do want to encourage is your respectful thoughts, questions, and impressions that you have about the topics discussed. And also, we encourage all the candidates here tonight to interact with folks inside of the chat as well. I want to give a big shout out to all the New Yorkers for Culture and Arts staff who have helped to organize this forum, including Lori Berg, Lucy Sexton, Tara Sheena, Regine Peters, Matt, I forgot your last name, Matt, and our partners who are listed in the chat, as well as our participating organizations also listed in the chat. So this evening, our moderator will be Juan Jose Escalante, who is the executive director of the Jose Limon Dance Foundation. Now, I know you're all excited to hear from our candidates in Manhattan, but before we do, just want to let you know and just keep you abreast that we have been hosting forums both last month and this month. This is actually our sixth forum, and we have 3 more to go. So if you want to learn more about those or even to see some of our past forums, you can visit www.ny4ca.org/advocacy and get more information on that. Now, without further ado, I will pass it over to Juan Jose. Welcome.
Thank you, Melanie. My name is Juan Jose Escalante, and welcome to the City Council Forum for Manhattan Districts 1, 3, 5, and 6 on Cultural and Arts, hosted by the New Yorkers for Cultural and Arts. I'm thrilled to be here with you guys. I'm going to begin with an accessibility check and give you a brief visual description. I'm wearing a white shirt with a navy blue blazer, brown skin, and sitting in front of a white door and a gray wall behind me. My pronouns are he, his, him. I also want to acknowledge that I'm currently in Lenape-Hocking territory. As many of you know, the COVID-19 pandemic has disproportionately impacted cultural organizations, cultural workers, and artists. Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, the arts and cultural sector generated $110 billion in economic activity in New York City, and with a workforce of over 300,000 individuals. For the city to bounce back, it needs a strong cultural sector, and today we are excited to hear from candidates from Manhattan's City Council Districts 1, 3, 5, and 6 about their views on the arts, culture, and our great city. This evening, I will ask candidates questions from the New Yorkers for Cultural and Arts Candidate Questionnaire. Each candidate will have 30 seconds to provide a visual description, followed by 60 seconds to respond to the question. Time permitting, I will invite candidates for each section to stick around for a follow-up question. Hopefully we'll get to those. If you'd like to know more about the candidates' responses to the questionnaire, they will be posted on the New Yorkers for Cultural and Arts website. The URL will be posted in the chat. The chat is open, so we also encourage candidates to converse with the guest. While we cannot promise to get to every question posed in the chat, we encourage the discussion and we'll be monitoring it both on Zoom and YouTube. Please be respectful with all comments that you pose. We also want to let you know that the order of the candidates and the questions they will be asked have been chosen randomly just to ensure fairness. So if we're ready, let's get started. And let's welcome from District 5, Julie Manning.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you, I can see you. How are you?
Oh, great. Hi, everyone. Great to see you.
Great. So we'll jump right into it. Data shows that neighborhoods with cultural assets have improved outcomes in everything from education and aging to community well-being and safety. Yet, nonprofit cultural groups often lack resources for long-term stable locations in the city's fluctuating real estate market. And artists and cultural workers need affordable places to live and work. What is your plan for creating healthy, stable communities? And how do you envision enlivening vacant commercial and city-owned spaces?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I love this question. I served as Commissioner of Media and Entertainment for New York, where I launched dozens of programs to help artists. We saved Soho Rep, we saved the Drama Bookshop. We did dozens of programs to support artists, musicians, independent theaters. So what do we need to do now? I couldn't agree more with the statement. The city, quite frankly, needs to step up and be supporting our cultural organizations and our artists across the city of New York. We should be utilizing the vacant space we have. Retail vacancy rates have soared, and we should be programming them with artistic use. I did that after 9/11. I launched a program called Art Downtown after 9/11 to bring foot traffic back to Lower Manhattan at the time. And that program really worked. We were able to use vacant retail spaces and bring artists to present their work, and it is a win-win situation. And so we need to make sure that in this COVID recovery that we have, that the arts are embedded directly into every aspect of it, because it's absolutely critical. We're not going to have a true recovery in New York if we don't fully support our artists, our artistic community. And I say this as a daughter of an artist. It is really incredibly important. It's something that I'm deeply committed to.
Thank you. And I meant to ask you from the top to do a visual description. So can we give you a few seconds for that?
Yes, absolutely. So I have brown hair. I'm wearing glasses. I have a blue jacket on.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Next, from District 6, I'd like to welcome Sarah Lynn.
Hello.
Hey, Sarah, there you are. So here we go. Educational programs for incarcerated and formerly incarcerated populations that include sustained arts programs have led to improvements in managing emotional states, building confidence and communication skills, and increased civic engagement. Question is, what are your plans for supporting incarcerated and formerly incarcerated New Yorkers?
Great. Well, thank you. My name is Sarah Lind. My pronouns are she, her. I'm running in District 6. I'm a white woman with long brown hair wearing an off-white blouse. This is a great question. And I think part of my platform is built on decarceration, limiting the number of individuals and New Yorkers who are incarcerated and helping them have reentry that is sustainable and where they can build thriving lives. So I think this is a really important question and one that I would definitely be focused on. As a board member of the transport group, as a volunteer on the programs committee for the Center for Arts Education and other things, I've been very focused on arts and how they benefit our city. And I'd love to see more programs within prisons and jails for art therapy, for just performing arts and using visual arts for therapy. And helping folks get into the arts when they get out of jail and prison. So I think it's incredibly beneficial to people who have experienced that trauma of incarceration and helps them build meaningful lives afterwards.
Great. Thank you so much. Next, we'll have Jeffrey Omura. Jeffrey?
Hello, how are you?
Good, Jeffrey. How are you?
I'm great.
Can we start with an introduction, please?
Sure, I'm Jeffrey Omura, he, him, his. I'm wearing a gray sweater. I've got black hair. I am a mixed race Asian man.
Excellent. Welcome. So in the COVID crisis, arts and cultural were the first to close, and much of the sector will be the last to reopen at full capacity. more than 50% of artists and cultural workers remain unemployed. This is in a sector where workers are 3.6 times more likely to be self-employed, freelancers, gig workers, and mixed income earners. So the question is, what is your plan for getting the city back to work, particularly in the hardest hit sectors? And what kind of workforce development programs do you envision that will provide access to communities of color and people with disabilities?
So this is an incredibly personal question for me. I'm an actor myself. I'm an elected officer of my union, Actors Equity Association, and I represent 20,000 unemployed actors and stage managers who live right here in New York City. This has been a very tough year for us. Our members have lost their health insurance. I personally lost my own health insurance through my union, and we are hurting. So we need everybody to prioritize the revitalization of arts and culture, because New York City's economy does not come back without it. First thing, we have got to get the tourists back, because they're the ones who buy the tickets. So we need an international promotional campaign until it's safe to open our borders. We've got to focus on getting people throughout the 50 states into New York City to patronize all of our cultural institutions. We need to directly buy tickets and give them away to tourists as a reward for shopping in the city. We need to partner with community groups in all 5 boroughs, in neighborhoods that have traditionally not had access to the arts. Make sure we are developing the next generation. We focus on arts education. We've got to restore the arts education budget so that every kid at every school has access to an arts education. And then your final question about how do we provide access to community.
I'm sorry, Jeffrey. I need to cut you off for a second there, because our time is up, but I would love to continue talking with you.
All right.
Next, I'd like to bring up Gail Brewer. Gail, are you here?
I am here. Yes, I am. Thank
You
you.
are. Can we start with an introduction? It's good
Sure.
to see you again.
I'm Gail Brewer, she, her. I have on a white and black jacket, brown hair that's always up, and I'm a white woman.
Thank you, Gail. So as of March 2021, just 4% of the shuttered creative businesses have returned to normal operations. The federal relief offered by the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant will only help an estimated 10% of the creative economy. Micro businesses, i.e. the sole proprietor or artists or small artist-led organizations, are particularly vulnerable. This is a huge loss for our city's economy, where the creative sector generates $110 billion in economic activity. Arts and culture have led recoveries in the past, enlivening the hollowed out industrial neighborhoods in the 70s and bringing people back downtown after 9/11. So the question is, what do you foresee is the role of the creative economies in supporting economic recovery in New York City, particularly for communities most affected by environmental, housing, and health instability due to COVID, including our aging, immigrant, and working class communities of color?
Huge question, Juan, but I will try. I would say, first of all, just like everybody else, the sector has been hurt perhaps more than any other sector. So the first thing you have to do is you actually have to make sure that the individual institutions that are providing, whether it's Broadway, which has opening in mid-September, but more importantly, the off-Broadway and the off-Broadway and the individual artists have funding. They can't do without funding. That's number one. The second is that the way in which we fund the arts is just backwards. We have to do arts education because you have to develop an audience, and we won't get tourism without the arts. So those 2 aspects of the arts, one in the very beginning of a person's life, and obviously the economic development that comes with tourism. Tourism is what brings 400,000 jobs. And of course, Broadway itself is 92,000, not to mention the many, many that are in off-Broadway. So you have to provide funding. You have to also support the unions, as you heard from Jeffrey. I happen to have been endorsed by A.R.T and Local 802, but they're not working. And so that would be another example of the economy.
Thank you, Gail. Thank you so much. We love having you here. Next, I'd like to bring up Maria D'Angelo. Maria with us?
Yes, I am. Hi,
Hi, I can hear you, I can't see you.
yeah, it said oh, here we
Oh,
go.
here we go.
Good.
Here we go.
Okay, sorry about that.
Why
Hi.
don't we start with a brief introduction?
Hi, my name is Maria D'Angelo and my pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm wearing a gray sweater and a black and white and red scarf. I have brown hair and eyeglasses.
Great. Good to see you.
Thank you.
So data shows that neighborhoods with cultural assets have improved outcomes in everything from education and aging to community well-being and safety. Yet, nonprofit or cultural groups often lack resources for long-term stable locations in the city's fluctuating real estate market. And artists and cultural workers need affordable places to live and work. The question is, what is your plan for creating healthy, stable communities? And how do you envision enlivening vacant commercial and city-owned spaces?
Great. Thank you for the question and thank you for having me. So I'm a copyright lawyer, intellectual property, First Amendment specialist by trade. And I think it's fair to say that I dedicated my life to protecting the rights of artists, creators, authors, and others. And the premise of my work has always been that creative people need to be rewarded for their creative work. That's really my life's work. And so it's an important question on how we can continue that, especially in a world where big tech has made such an impact on our creative fields and has really changed how creativity is rewarded and how creators are able to reap the rewards of their work. So the creative communities in New York are so integral to our New York. It's why people love New York. It's why people are here. And we have to protect our creative communities. We need to make sure that it's affordable for artists to be here and creators to be here. And they also have to be rewarded for their work. They have to be paid fairly. And that, of course, will contribute to their ability to stay in New York. So I think part of my plan would be to make sure that we are protecting the rights that artists and creators have to reap the rewards of their creative work, and at the same time making it possible for space to be utilized at good rates. It's something we need to prioritize in our city at the and it's just something that is in our DNA here in New York.
Thank you, Maria.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for being with us. Next, we'd like to bring from District 3, Arthur Schwartz. Are you here? It's Art here. See your name, but I don't see you.
He's here. He just put in the chat that he's here. I think he's just having a hard time unmuting or.
I see. Okay. There you are. We're trying to see if we can open your video.
In my mute. Hi, how you doing?
There you are. There you are. Welcome. Welcome. Why don't we start with a brief introduction?
All right. Well, I'm looking at myself and there's some words in front of me, so I can't tell you what I look like. I have not a lot of hair. I have a mustache and a beard. I'm wearing black frame glasses. I'm wearing a light blue shirt and a red tie with some kind of diamond design on it. And I'm sitting in a room with a poster next to me with Bernie Sanders with his left arm raised saying, fight the power.
All right. All right. Well, here we go. Healthcare is a pressing issue for individual artists, cultural workers, and small cultural groups without resources for major coverage plans. This impacts disabled artists, cultural workers, and organizations enormously. In addition, many people are experiencing disabilities after suffering with COVID. And in communities harder hit by COVID, health outlets are closing. For instance, in Brownsville, Brooklyn, there has been a recent closure announcement for a long-standing family and women's health clinic. So the question is, what is your plan to address the healthcare needs of the city of the city's many communities.
Right. I have a long history of fighting around healthcare. Just to go back, back in 2017, I brought a lawsuit when it was announced that Beth Israel Hospital was going to close, and I had been a patient there with a heart attack and was very concerned about that I wouldn't be alive if it hadn't been there. So I brought a lawsuit under the environmental laws and the health laws, and actually prevented the closure of Beth Israel Hospital. And then on March 18th last year, as they were opening up the Javits Center, I stood with others in front of the hospital and demanded that they open their 400 mothballed beds, which they did. So to me, it's a core issue, and to me, it's one of those places that the city has to immediately put money into that it takes from other places, such as the police department budget, put it into preventing further closures and consolidations of hospitals, B, opening up clinics for all people in all communities, but particularly in communities where there are persons who may not have clear immigration status, people that don't have health insurance. Make sure there are clinics, quality clinics staffed by quality physicians that people can get health care in, so that we can do something that was not done when the pandemic first hit in New York.
Thank you so much for being here and for your participation. Next from District 3, I'd like to bring up Leslie Bogosian Murphy. Am I pronouncing your last name correctly?
Can I tell you, you got that spot on. I think it was the first time in this whole campaign. No.
Oh my God, thank you. What about a brief introduction, Leslie?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. My name is Leslie Bogosian Murphy. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I have blondish brown hair, shoulder length, glasses. I'm a white woman with skin indicative of my Armenian heritage, and I am wearing a gray jacket.
Great. So good to have you here.
Thank you.
The city has a qualified legion of teaching artists, totaling over 4,500 educators. Yet 67% of New York City principals stated that funding for the arts is generally insufficient. Currently, New York City does not meet state mandates for arts in every public school. Yet, arts education in schools have been shown to improve academic and social emotional outcomes for students, especially when provided as an integrated part of the curriculum. So the question is, what is your plan for the city's school system, and what is your vision of the role the arts in education plays?
Absolutely. I could not be a bigger advocate for education in general and arts education in particular. And I'll tell you one thing, the sad part about art in schools is that it's often determined by how much money a PTA can raise. So dance, music, advanced art, you probably know this, these are not universally included in curriculums. It's not like writing, science, reading, depending on how good a school's art program is how much a PTA can raise. So we have the wealthier parent bodies able to afford this and others not able to. So this has to be addressed because I believe arts education is not a luxury. I have advocated for much more attention to be directed towards school funding and how we can expand a variety of programs and resources, from having a nurse and guidance counselor in every school to incorporating climate curricula and arts programming. When we have an opportunity, as I mentioned earlier, because of COVID, to reimagine many of the old and ineffectual systems that have really, I think, dictated the DOE's directives at schools at every level of education in New York City. So good news, the state has finally allocated the funding for our public schools that we have been owed for over a decade. So now we need to work with state lawmakers and the public to hold those funds to account and ensure that they are being directed not only towards proper art programming, but evenly.
Thank you so much, Leslie. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I
It's been
appreciate
great
it.
having you here.
Thank you.
All right. Next up will be Eric Butcher. Am I pronouncing that last name right?
Hi, everyone. My name is Eric Botcher. My pronouns are he, him, his. I have white skin, dirty blonde hair. I'm wearing a black sweater over a blue collared shirt, and I'm sitting in front of a bookshelf with a copy of The Power Broker.
Great to have you here, Eric. So data shows that neighborhoods with cultural assets have improved outcomes in everything from education and aging to community well-being and safety. Yet nonprofit cultural groups often lack resources for long-term stable locations in the city's fluctuating real estate market. And artists and cultural workers need affordable places to live and work. What is your plan for creating healthy, stable communities, and how do you envision enlivening vacant commercial and city-owned spaces?
So as a council member, I'm going to use the land use process at every opportunity to create new and permanently affordable artist space, performance space, and in my current or former capacity as Chief of Staff to New York City Council Speaker Corey Johnson in Council District 3, I helped negotiate a number of land use actions that did that. Down on Gansevoort Street, we worked with a property owner and generated 2 permanently affordable performance spaces. The glut of empty storefronts is an awful, awful thing. It also provides an opportunity for artist pop-up space, creation space, performance space, space to show art. And the government really needs to take a more active role in facilitating that. Back in January, I worked with my neighbors to create an initiative where we did a count of the empty storefronts in our district and gathered their contact information. And we're in the process of connecting them with Cheshama, the nonprofit that puts artist space into storefronts. I support a vacancy fee that disincentivizes leaving storefronts vacant for many years, like some big property owners do, but combining that with a program like Cheshama so they can really satisfy that by bringing in artist space so we can enliven our neighborhoods, support the arts, and reduce the number of vacant storefronts in our neighborhoods.
Thank you so much, Eric. It's a pleasure having you here.
Thank you.
Next from District 3, we'd like to bring up Marnie Halassa.
Yes.
Am I pronouncing your name right?
Oh, yes, yes, you are. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Oh, and it's the same question?
I can't see you.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Start my video.
Here we go.
Oh, you can see me now?
I can see you now. How about a brief introduction?
Oh, so I'm sorry I'm late. My name is Marnie Halassa. I'm a lawyer, figure skating coach, community activist. A brief introduction is I've done a lot of things. I've been a small business owner, you know, a skating coach, activist. I have, sorry, I just like ran from ran from my work.
You made it.
So, you know, so basically I have, I've actually collectively organized NYCHA tenants in the district against RAD, rental assistance demonstration. We fought hard for 2 years. We were able to stop the demolition of 2 Fulton Houses buildings, but we're still.
Let me get to the question so you can.
Oh, is it just a question? I'm sorry.
So you will have 60 seconds to answer. So as
of I'm sorry. Yes.
That's all right. As of March 2021, just 4% of the shutter creative businesses have returned to normal operations. The federal relief offered by the Shutter Venue Operators Grant will only help an estimated 10% of the creative economy. Micro businesses, i.e. the sole proprietary artists and small artist-led organizations are particularly vulnerable. This is a huge loss for our city's economy, where the creative sector generates 110 billion in economic activity. Arts and culture have led recoveries in the past, enlightening the hollowed out industrial neighborhoods in the 70s and bringing people back downtown after 9/11. So the question is, what do you foresee is the role of the creative economies in supporting economic recovery in New York City, particularly for communities most affected by environmental, housing, and health instability due to COVID, including our aging, immigrant, and working class communities of color?
Well, it's huge. I mean, our arts community in the district are, so intertwined with our district and city's economy. So it's a huge, important, it's very important. I think actually what would really help is number one, the Small Business Job Survival Act, which would give all small business owners an affordable and renewable lease. I talked to business owners in the district, and basically what they say is they want to be able to renegotiate their leases with their landlords. The SBJSA actually would allow that. And also, when I talk to business owners, they're talking about rent forgiveness and canceling the rent. They've been hit so hard by the pandemic. I mean, it's so hard for them to get out, dig themselves out of the hole. That's one thing they're talking about also. But I think the city and the state, they need to step up. We need to put money in the budget, I feel like, to help small businesses.
Thank you so
and
much,
the Fed has
Marian.
stepped up, but it's just not enough.
Thank you so much, and I'm glad you made it home safe.
Thank you.
So next, let's pull up Phelan Danted Fitzpatrick. Phelan, are you here?
Hi, everyone.
There you are. Hi.
Hi.
So how about a brief introduction?
Sure. My name is Phelan Dante Fitzpatrick. My pronouns are he, him, his. I am a light-skinned Black man, incredibly good-looking. I have dark hair, dark eyes. I'm wearing a blue blue button-up shirt, and I'm running for City Council in District 3, which goes from West Side, Soho to parts of the Upper West Side.
Great, and thank you for your modesty. So, educational programs for incarcerated and formerly incarcerated populations that include sustained arts programs has led to improvements in managing emotional states, building confidence and communication skills, and increased civic engagement. So the question is, what are your plans for supporting incarcerated and formerly incarcerated New Yorkers?
Yeah, so let me just say first by saying any agenda for recovery at the federal, state, or local level really is going to depend on our efforts to reduce the impact of mass incarceration in the first place. The economy really wasn't working for Black and brown people before the pandemic. And, it's no secret that people of color who have been convicted of a crime are definitely the most affected. And that's because none of our representatives cared enough about these community members. The question is why? Well, because a vast amount of formerly incarcerated residents couldn't vote. That's the truth. I think that, there's going to be four main things that we're going to need to do. We're going to need to provide real second chances to those who have been throughout the criminal justice system. And this is going to require sealing and expunging old criminal records and providing educational opportunities in prison. Reversing the unraveling of social safety nets that has been done over the past few decades, like exclusions to accessing public housing or a lot of other benefits. Those need to be narrowed or repealed outright. And really just the most basic, reducing the number of people who interact with the criminal justice system in any way in the first place. And this is done with diversion programs that help with lower level crimes to avoid conviction and sentencing. And we need comprehensive programs, that prioritize post-incarceration rehabilitation that really helps end recidivism and the additional after effects of incarceration.
Thank you so much, Phil. It's a pleasure having you here.
Thank you.
Next from District 3 as well, Alita Lafargue, are you here?
I'm here. Yes, thank you.
I hope I didn't kill your name with.
You said it perfectly. Very good.
Thank you.
You're good at this.
All right. Well, here we go. What about a brief introduction? Let's start with that.
Okay. Hi. So I'm Alita Lafargue. She, her, hers. I'm a mixed race, Black and Choctaw Native American and Italian woman with long black hair and piercing brown eyes.
Awesome. Okay, here we go. In the COVID crisis, arts and culture were the first to close, and much of the sector will be the last to reopen at full capacity. More than 50% of artists and cultural workers remain unemployed. This in a sector where workers are 3.6 times more likely to be self-employed, freelancers, gig workers, and mixed income earners. So the question is, what is your plan for getting the city back to work particularly in its hardest hit sectors? And what kind of workforce development programs do you envision that will provide access to communities of color and people with disabilities?
Well, thank you for that question. This is an issue very dear to me. I am myself an actress. I also am a woman of color and a person who lives with a disability. I was raised by a mother who's an actress in a building that is 70% performing artists. My brother's also a stagehand, a local one sound designer, and many of my friends who live in the district here are ushers, teamsters, any number of supportive arts workers. So everyone I know has been out of work, and it's been extremely frightening for families who don't know when they're going to get back to work. I definitely would advocate for work progress administration to employ art workers and bring their talents to the public, providing a very critical lifeline to many struggling. I think we need a new deal for the arts. We can expand open culture, which I think has been very successful. The Open Streets program has been something really fun and uplifting. We've been very successful here where I live and serve as the 5-year elected tenant president to our 70% performing artist community. We have given opportunities to our artists to perform outdoors in socially distant spaces, doing music and dance and readings of their plays. We've provided them opportunities to get paid for that work as well. We also created an incredible program for our children last summer when most kids were locked up inside to learn musical instruments, to perform. And I think
that's excellent. That's excellent. And you know, in the spirit of a new deal for the arts, we're going to take a 5-minute break.
Thank you so much.
Please enjoy images and a short video from the current exhibition titled Political Intimacy on view at the Pratt Manhattan Gallery located in District 3. And it's now open through June 22nd. Enjoy that.
Okay, great. Anytime you want to shoot, it's like, welcome to the car parade. I'm Amy Koshben. I am a professor at Pratt and a fellow in civic engagement. We're bringing together Pratt Institute, amazing students. We're bringing together peer leaders from the Recess Assembly program.
Recess Assembly is an artist-led alternative to incarceration. It's a program offering long-term paid training and pathways to creative employment for court-involved youth.
I joined Recess about 6 months ago. They gave me an opportunity to learn how to print and showcase my art through a different type of light.
That one came out way better. Oops, that might be the one.
And we're collaborating
to get people that don't know more informed about political things.
Let's go. Yeah. This project that we're doing is all about demystifying and humanizing running for office.
I think it would be really valuable for all of us to learn together who's running against these folks, what are their positions against their other candidates, why are they becoming city council candidates to begin with.
Today we were talking with A.R.T. He's running for city council.
Hi, I'm Eric.
Hi. I'm Tyra, nice to meet you.
Michael Hollinsworth.
I'm running for City Council in District 35.
We're interviewing Crystal Hudson.
Running for City Council in the 35th District.
I'm running for New York City Council District 9.
It's our time, one love. I'm an artist, an activist, and I'm also running for mayor of New York City.
I'm Jabari Brisport. I'm a state senator in the 25th State Senate District.
So you are the senator for the district of Pratt. We're in collaboration with Recess Art, which is also in the district. So these are constituents of yours as well.
I guess my criticism, which could be for any candidate in general, is just I feel like I would hope that there would be change, but I just don't feel like no matter who goes into office, like it's gonna stop me from being homeless again or stop me from being harassed by the police again.
Right.
I wonder what questions would you have for a candidate
about how they're going to keep their promises.
How do we find ways to feel empowered to change the electoral system that we know is so broken?
So, there are families that make less than $10,000 a year, and there are equal amount of families that make over $200,000 a year and more. So my question to you is, how can you possibly address and redistribute the wealth?
You are speaking my language now. The way you do reduce the wealth gap is through progressive taxation, taking more money from the people that can afford it and putting it into social programs and jobs for, people who have less.
So you did mention like houselessness earlier, like,
I mentioned what, sorry?
Houselessness, like combating
yeah.
like houselessness. I would just like put the top of the sleeping bag over because like sometimes the wind will come in, so it's like I'll block it out. I think about like the people who've probably been out here for like maybe 5 years or more, met all the requirements needed, but it was just no action happening. So how would you actually go about fighting this fight for like, houselessness?
My team and I have been looking at Utah as a model, like a home's guarantee. Literally just you are human, we're guaranteeing you a home.
It's not about changing one rule here or one rule there. It's about changing a system that perpetuates houselessness and homelessness. Black communities have never actually been invested in a meaningful way.
I grew up, every day was the 4th of July. Gunshots, all those are fireworks. So, talking to us and us being able to hear about some of the issues you care about the most, issues that probably affected us, generations of our people, this is an amazing opportunity.
Yeah, that goes to what I was saying. Like, I hope you do really think about getting into politics. I hope you do someday run, because that goes to what I was saying about what qualifies you, right? I'm gonna have a different lens on how we fund police because I have the experience of a false arrest. And people who haven't been that don't understand how incredibly dehumanizing it is. The interaction is trauma. You speaking to the gunshots and the 4th of July, you speaking to your experience of houselessness, like that, it's trauma. These are dehumanizing things that don't need to exist. They do not have to be here. The world does not have to be set up this way.
Welcome back, everybody. We're going to move on to District 5 now, and we have a couple of candidates. District 5, so that you are aware, includes the Upper East Side, Yorkville, Lenox Hill, Carnegie Hill, Roosevelt Island, Midtown East, Sutton Place, and in East Harlem, El Barrio. Now I would like to introduce you to Billy Friedland. Billy, are you here?
Yep, I'm right here.
There you are, great. How about a brief introduction?
Well, thank you, Juan. Thank you, New Yorkers for Culture and Arts. My name is Billy Freeland. I'm running in District 5, which, as you mentioned, is the Upper East Side, Roosevelt Island, Del Barrio, and some of Midtown East. My pronouns are he, him, and his. And to describe myself, I am a white man with short brown hair, wearing a navy blue blazer, a lighter blue dress shirt, and sitting in front of a fiddle leaf fig plant. And I'm sitting here on Lenape land.
Welcome, and thank you for the introduction. Billy, educational programs for incarcerated and formerly incarcerated populations that include sustained arts programs has led to improvement in managing emotional states, building confidence and communication skills, and increased civic engagement. Question is, what are your plans for supporting incarcerated and formerly incarcerated New Yorkers?
Well, this is such an important question because I think we are a society that relies far too much on incarceration. So let me take that in two pieces. One, for those who are currently incarcerated, we need a plan for reentry and rehabilitation. And I think the arts can be absolutely crucial to that. In fact, I think the arts have to be crucial to everything we do in 2022 and beyond to bring our city back. So for those who are currently incarcerated, bring arts programming, into our jails and into our prisons. And then when people are exiting jail or prison, when they're reintegrating into society, making sure that we have reentry programs, not just for housing, for accessing Section 8 vouchers, but for accessing employment, potentially in the arts. I want to revisit what worked so well in the New Deal a century ago, which is a works progress administration, a federal feeder type program. We've even done this in New York in the late 70s with programming to make sure that we are actually hiring New Yorkers funded by the city. It is embarrassing that our city budget is 0.3% goes to cultural programming. So by increasing that budget, creating a jobs program, an arts hiring program, and working with the formerly incarcerated, I think that's how we begin to answer your question.
Thank you so much, Bill. I appreciate it.
Of course.
We'd like to invite Tricia Shimamura. Hello, Tricia. How about a brief introduction? I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Hi, everybody. My name is Tricia Shimamura. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a proud Japanese Puerto Rican woman of color. I have dark brown straight hair. I am wearing a green floral top, and I am sitting in front of a lit piece of my own art with a light on in the back. And I'm very happy to be here. Apologies if you hear my child screaming in the background. It's just normal. It's bath time.
It's normal. We're happy to have you. So Tricia, as of March 2021, just 4% of shuttered creative businesses have returned to normal operations. The federal relief offered by the shuttered venue operators grants will only help an estimated 10% of the creative economy. Micro businesses, i.e. the sole proprietary artists or small artist-led organizations, are particularly vulnerable. This is a huge loss for our city's economy, where the creative sector generates $110 billion in economic activity. Arts and culture have led recoveries in the past, enlivening the hollowed-out industrial neighborhoods in the 70s and bringing people back downtown after 9/11. So the question is, what do you foresee is the role of creative economies in supporting economic recovery in New York City, particularly for communities most affected by environmental, housing, and health instability due to COVID, including our aging, immigrant, and working class communities of color?
Sure. So first of all, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for putting this on. As a social worker, as a woman of color, as a former art teacher, and an artist myself, I know that our creative economy is not just a luxury or not just a offshoot of our economic recovery. It is New York. And without our creative economy, we do not recover from this crisis that we're in. And I believe that this is a time to be creative and bold. This is a time for us to be thinking outside the box. We need direct support and subsidies for our artists and artist communities. We need rent relief. We need to be thinking creatively of how we use our streets and our open spaces to support the arts in this time of incredible need. We need to be thinking about performances in community gardens, in park space, on top of roofs and in our empty storefronts. I really do think that this is a time for us to be working with our, working with our artist community hand in hand as we look to uplift those communities that have always been left behind. And those include our low income Black and Brown communities, and really centering on them and their experiences and how we come and build our city back stronger, more resilient, more just for generations to come.
Thank you so much. Billy, if you're still around, we have a question for you and Trisha. You each will have a minute to answer. So here it comes. It comes from the community. This question is from Mark Rosier at the Elevator Repair Service Theater. He says, the culture and hospitality communities have been amongst those which have been most severely affected by the pandemic. These are also the communities which are going to take the longest time to get back to work and the longest time to recover. While there have been emergency resources that have provided stopgaps for some, or hardly all, what can you and the council do to provide a longer term safety net for those who are suffering and will continue to struggle with long-term debt even after the reopening?
Would you like me to go first on that one, Juan?
Ladies always first.
Great. Well, I absolutely agree. Our hospitality industry has been hardest hit. And I will just also add that the hospitality industry is also an industry that employs more women and people of color than other industries completely. So when we talk about recovery, we need to look at this intersectionally and realize that it's not just bringing back our hospitality and entertainment industry. It's also bringing back, creating more a just recovery. And excuse my son in the background. I believe that we should be looking at grants, loan forgiveness, again, rental assistance, direct funds and subsidies to these employers and to their agents, to our entertainment workers and again those who are working in this creative economy. No one initiative is going to be enough to fix this. I have worked in the past with the small business development the small business development organizations in order to help support our small businesses, but it is not enough. We are not doing enough right now, and we need to be thinking again creatively about how we provide direct loan assistance, particularly to the hospitality industry, which we know is employing more women and people of color.
Thank you, Trisha. Billy, your turn.
Great. This is such an important question. And I think it was Mark who asked it. I hope I have that right. So let me just focus on the cultural and hospitality industries. First, we need a living wage in New York City. We've been talking about the fight for 15, but you know what? It's time to fight for 18 at a minimum, because $18 is what a living wage is for a single individual in New York City. So let's start with that. And then let's talk about benefits. Let's talk about the fact that we have a patchwork of healthcare insurance programs. If you're lucky enough to even have insurance, many people are working in these industries, often freelance, certainly in the cultural industry. We need a collection of benefits that the city helps fund for freelance workers, for independent contractors in these industries. I also think we ought to be exploring pilot programs for universal basic income to supplement incomes, particularly in the arts. San Francisco piloted universal basic income for artists. Let's try doing that here in New York City. And then finally, let's make sure that we're canceling the rent, that we continue the eviction moratorium. People need a roof over their head. It is a fundamental human right. Housing is a human right. I believe that to my core, and that is what I will fight for all New Yorkers if I'm elected to the city council.
Thank you, Billy. Moving into District 1 candidates now, we'd like to invite Tiffany Winbush. Tiffany, you here?
Hi. Yes. Hello.
There you are.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for
Hi.
having me.
Absolutely. Welcome. How about a brief introduction?
Wonderful. Thank you. And apologies for the late start. District 1 had a prior debate right before this. So that's where I was and where some of my colleagues were as well. So I'm happy to share a little bit more about myself. I am a New York City transplant. Like so many New Yorkers, I moved here over 15 years ago from my home state of Louisiana to follow my dreams, and that was to work in the marketing communications field. And I also like to tell a very funny joke that I also followed a guy here. That guy just happens to be my husband now of 13 years. But while Louisiana is where my roots are, New York City is definitely my home. It's where I became a partner to my husband. It's where I became a mother to my daughter Kai and my son Spencer Jackson. And it's where I have made lifelong friends. I like to say that I come from a family of helpers. We helped our neighbors register to vote. We educated them on ballot initiatives. We drove them to the polls on election day if needed. And, you know, we
Thank you, Tiffany. Why don't we get to the question?
Okay, great.
About that. Okay. In the COVID crisis, arts and culture were the first to close, and much of the sector will be last to reopen at full capacity. More than 50% of artists and cultural workers remain unemployed. This is in a sector where cultural workers are 3.6 times more likely to be self-employed, freelancers, gig workers, and mixed income earners. So the question is, what is your plan for getting the city back to work, particularly in its hardest hit sectors? And what kind of workforce development programs do you envision that will provide access to communities of color and people with disabilities?
Great question. Thank you so much. So I think the very first thing that we need to continue to do is that we need to take care of our neighbors who works in the arts and culture. I know that there is a big call across the country how the federal government needs to end the additional unemployment funds. That needs not be a message that comes from leadership within New York State. Our people need that. So number one, we need to continue to take care of people. And if that means giving them the money so that they can pay their rent, so they can put food on their table, so they can pay their bills, I am all for it. And I want to continue that. Additionally, I think we have to realize that New York City is receiving an influx of federal funds. The funds for arts and culture from the federal government, the majority of it is going to New York State. So that means that the money is there. That means that there is absolutely no excuse as to why we cannot help carry these arts and cultures institutions so they can get back on their feet within the next year or two. I am a believer of no strings attached grants. I want to give business owners, I want to give, theaters and other cultural facilities grants where they can bring back their employees, where they can, make sure they're able to operate without them having to expect to pay that loan back 1 or 2 years down the line. So I believe.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Thank you so much. I appreciate your answer. Also from District 1, we'd like to invite Gigi Lee. Gigi, are you here?
Yes, hi.
Hello, welcome.
Thank you.
How about if we start with a 30-second visual introduction and description?
Sure. So good evening, everyone. My name's Gigi Lee. I'm an immigrant. I'm a new mom to a 7-month-old. I started as a social worker that was frustrated with the city's inability to help families in a time of need. And so I started asking larger questions, and that led me to joining my community board and then chairing it, working for the current council member. I have a track record on citywide policies, on issues, only one that has delivered affordable housing, and I'm ready to start on day one, and I'll keep it brief so I can answer your question.
Thank you so much, appreciate that. So Gigi, as of March 2021, just 4% of the shuttered creative businesses have returned to normal operations. The federal relief offered by the shuttered venue operators grants will only help an estimated 10% of the creative economy. Micro businesses, i.e. the sole proprietary artists or small artist-led organizations, are particularly vulnerable. This is a huge loss for our city's economy, where the creative sector generates $110 billion in economic activity. Arts and culture have led recoveries in the past, enlivening the hollowed-out industrial neighborhoods in the 70s and bringing people back downtown after 9/11. So the question is, what do you foresee is the role of creative economies in supporting economic recovery in New York City, particularly for communities most affected by environmental, housing, and health instability due to COVID, including our aging, immigrant, and working class communities of color?
Yes, so that is a very loaded question, but I'm going to try to answer it all succinctly. So first of all, there is a significant amount of money coming from DC and then passing through the state. We need to make sure that the money is not only going to the large nonprofits, right? We need to make sure that there is pass-through money to the smaller nonprofits that have been on the ground every day helping the most vulnerable individuals. I helped start a food pantry at the start of COVID. It is now one of the largest food pantries in New York City. We need to think about our seniors, our individuals with disabilities, and also our gig workers and our artists. I was at a rally this past weekend sponsored by the League of Independent Theaters. There was a whole wall of theaters that have closed since COVID. We need to make sure that individuals who have continued to do the work, whether it's doing drag story time in our public libraries, local dance classes, that those individuals get recognized and get funded for the work that they continue to do. And we also need to think about, I say this all the time, that as we recover as a city, the trauma that we have experienced, that arts and art culture is going to be a huge proponent of how we recover. And so if that means employing some of our artists to be in our schools to help work with children, the same thing for senior centers. Let's expand CASA and Sue CASA so that we can get artists employed in a variety of different ways and think outside of the box and how we can do that.
Thank you so much, Gigi. Appreciate your answer.
Thank you.
Also from District 1, we'd like to introduce you to Jenny Lowe.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Jenny. How about a brief introduction and a visual description?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me tonight. I am running for City Council in Lower Manhattan, a lifelong resident of Lower Manhattan, and I have been working and fighting for those in our community for over 30 years as a public servant and a community advocate. I am running because I see the devastation that COVID pandemic has done to our city and our district. I've spent a lot of time during the pandemic over the last year helping those who are in need. In particular, I work with a team of volunteers and help coordinate over 1 million free meals to those in need.
Great, Jenny. Let me get to the question because I'm curious to see your answer. Data shows that neighborhoods with cultural assets have improved outcomes in everything from education and aging to community well-being and safety. Yet nonprofit cultural groups often lack resources for long-term stable locations in the city's fluctuating real estate market. And artists and cultural workers need affordable places to work and live. So the question is, what is your plan for creating healthy, stable communities? How do you envision enlivening vacant commercial and city-owned spaces?
Sure. So prior to becoming the director of community engagement at the City Council, I spent 10 years at the JP Morgan Chase Foundation, managing a multi-million-dollar grant portfolio where we supported organizations that are in affordable housing, job training, and education. And in particular, many of the education programs that we supported, that I supported, were with arts organizations, nonprofit arts organizations like National Dance Institute, Arts in School, and Partnership in Arts that helps to bring the arts program into the schools, public schools, and particularly low-income public schools because funding doesn't allow them to have a robust arts program. And we also supported many local arts organizations that, and some of the programs actually help for local organizations to restart their artist live and work space.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jenny. That was a great answer. Thank you for being here with us. From District 1, we'd like to introduce you to Sean Hayes. Sean, are you here?
Yes, I am. Let me start my video here.
Excellent. Good to see you.
Very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Sean. So Sean, educational programs for incarcerated and formerly incarcerated populations that include sustained arts programs has led to improvements in managing emotional states, building confidence and communication skills, and increased civic engagement. So the question is, what are your plans for supporting incarcerated and formerly incarcerated New Yorkers?
Yeah, I think our plan. We're the only ones that out of the candidates here that actually have a plan for this. We have a jail to jobs plan, and it's on our website. What we would like to do is form a Peace Corps type program for people getting out of jail, transitioning workers, also workers that are handicapped. And what we can do with this is it's a program that I saw in South Korea when I was in South Korea. They have this type of program. We can place people in nonprofits. We could place people in government agencies. We could place people in banks. The private sector in the South Korean program, what they did is 50% of the salary was paid for by the federal government, national government in South Korea. And that encouraged my law firm to hire 6 people. So we hired 6 people every year. They paid that salary for 1 year. So I think what we fundamentally need is people like myself that looks at a problem and solves that problem, not just pontificators. And if you look at our site, you can see many programs like this. It's at www.seanhayesfornewyorkcity.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sean. And I meant to give you some time to introduce yourself and give us a visual description. So why don't we give Sean
Sure.
30 seconds.
I'm Sean Hayes, and my pronouns are he, his, him. And some people would say I'm a handsome man, and everyone would say I'm a white man with black hair, blue shirt, blue tie. Thank you so much,
Sean. Great to see you. From District 1, we'd like to introduce you to Susan Lee. Susan, are you here? There you are. Hi, Susan. How about a brief visual description and introduction, please?
Right. Hi, my name is Susan Lee. I am a Chinese American, long black hair. I am waving at you guys right now. And I'm wearing a black jacket, a floral top. So again, my name is Susan Lee. I am a lifelong New Yorker. I immigrated to New York from Hong Kong at the age of 6. And my first arts and cultural experience was pottery classes at the Grand Street Settlement and piano lessons at 3rd Street Music School. So arts and culture has always been a big part of my life.
That's great. And welcome, Susan. So in the COVID crisis, arts and culture were the first to close, and much of the sector will be last to reopen at full capacity. More than 50% of artists and cultural workers remain unemployed. This is in a sector where workers are 3.6 times more likely to be self-employed, freelancers, gig workers, and mixed income earners. So the question is, what is your plan for getting the city back to work, particularly in its hardest hit sectors? What kind of workforce development programs do you envision that will provide access to communities of color and people with disability?
Thank you, Juan, for that question. I just want to preface that I am actually a freelance grant writer myself. So I know the struggles of freelance gig workers where, you know, you live paycheck by paycheck. But you know, I'm lucky enough that my husband has a traditional job that he has a steady income. But going back to your question, I was on a board of a nonprofit that did workforce development for traffic victims. And what we did was we helped them develop life skills. And that is what I envision for workers that are returning to the workforce. I will partner, my council office will partner with community-based organizations because I don't believe in reinventing the wheel. They know what's best. So we will work with community-based organizations on workforce development, and I will help my constituents find those programs and services that they need so that they can retrain, learn new life skills so they could enter the workforce.
Thank you so much, Susan. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Again, from District 1, we have Christopher Marte. Christopher, you here?
Yeah, I'm right here. Hi, my name is Christopher Marte, he, him. I'm wearing a blue suit jacket, yellow tie, white shirt. I'm a son of Dominican immigrants, a bodega owner, a poet, and I'm proud to be endorsed by League of Independent Theaters.
Great. Well, welcome. As a Dominican myself, it's good to see you.
Okay.
So Christopher, the city has a qualified legion of teaching artists, totaling over 4,500 educators. Yet 67% of New York City principals stated that funding for the arts is generally insufficient. Currently, New York City does not meet the state mandates for arts in every public school. Yet arts education in schools has been shown to improve academic and social emotional outcomes for students, especially when provided as an integrated part of the curriculum. So the question is, what is your plan for the city's school system, and what is your vision of the role that arts in education plays?
I believe it's crucial. Arts is what celebrates our diversity, shows us many skills that many of us don't know until we enter a door of an art classroom or an after-school program. And I think it needs to be integrated with every single curriculum, especially with mathematics and reading, where it might not seem easy for many, but adding arts components to it can translate it into a way where people can relate to it, visualize it, and excel in it. And so I think it's not only funding our schools to make sure that we have the adequate art spaces and paid professionals to help us teach the arts, but it's changing our curriculum where we can not only teach math and sciences in a different way, but we also learn about our local artists in our neighborhood. For example, in Chinatown, we have amazing photographers, painters. They should be part of our curriculum, and they should be celebrated. And so we have to tackle this on a curriculum basis, funding basis. And as a city council member, I'm ready to use my own discretionary funds to invest in art supplies for our classroom.
Thank you so much, Christopher, and thank you for your answer. Susan Damplo, are you here? Oh, hello, Susan. How about a brief introduction and a virtual?
Thank you, Juan Jose. I apologize. I was a little bit stuck with the buttons. Yes, my name is Susan Damplo, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm 59 years old. I wear glasses. I have brown hair, brown eyes, and I'm wearing a gray jacket this evening.
Welcome, and thank you for being here. Susan, healthcare is a pressing issue for individual artists, cultural workers, and small cultural groups without resources for major coverage plans. This impacts disabled artists, workers, and organizations enormously. In addition, many people are experiencing disabilities after suffering with COVID. And in communities hardest hit by COVID, health outlets are closing. For instance, in Brownsville, Brooklyn, there has been a recent closure announcement for a long-standing family and women's health clinic. So the question is, what is your plan to address the healthcare needs of the city's many communities?
Thank you, Juan Jose. May I also just preface, I am an attorney for over 3 decades. I sing with the New York City Bar Chorus. We are an outreach chorus for nursing homes, homeless shelters, as well as for the visually impaired. I also play the piano. I am a former union member myself. So as far as healthcare is concerned, Juan Jose, I believe that healthcare is a human right, and I support Medicare for all. I don't think that one's healthcare should be tied to one's particular job. I don't think it makes sense in terms of human dignity as a moral question. So I think this is an issue that we need to tackle as a nation. 4 years of chaos, darkness, and division have kept us from addressing this. But I think under the Biden administration, we should focus on that, but we don't have to wait. We can do better here in New York City, and on City Council, I will support programs that decouple healthcare from any kind of employment status.
Thank you so much, Susan. I appreciate your answer, and I appreciate the passion behind it too. So thank you for that.
It's a question of human rights, Juan Jose.
Absolutely, 100%. Next, we have Maud Marin. Maud, are you here?
Yeah, yes, I am here.
Oh, great. There you are. Welcome.
I've actually been here, but I had clicked on the wrong Zoom link, so I was watching you all speak, and then when I realized my turn was probably coming up soon, and I realized I didn't see my name, so I found a different Zoom link, and now I'm here.
Oh, I'm glad you made it. I'm glad you made it. How about a brief introduction and description?
Surely. Well, I'm tall, and no one would really know that because I'm sitting down through all of our conversations these days on Zoom, which happens. I'm a mom of 4 kids, so I look tired all the time, but I'm happy to be here with you. As I said, I'm a mom, so I have 4 kids in public school. I'm also a public defender. I've worked for years for the largest public defense agency in New York. I'm a big advocate of public safety right now in our city, and I've talked about it for the last 2 years as I've been running this campaign.
Thank you so much for that. So Maud, in the COVID crisis, arts and culture were the first to close, and much of the sector will be last to reopen at full capacity. More than 50% of artists and cultural workers remain unemployed. This in a sector where workers are 3.6 times more likely to be self-employed, freelancers, gig workers, and mixed income earners. So the question is, what is your plan for getting the city back to work, particularly in its hardest hit sectors? And what kind of workforce development programs do you envision that will provide access to communities of color and people with disabilities?
Well, thank you for the great question. I will say that among those workers who you're describing are, of course, lots of women and men, but lots of women. And the reason I want to single out women for a moment is because women have left the workforce in droves, not just in the arts industry, but I understand how heavily hit it is because of our inability to get our schools properly opened. And one of the component parts of getting people back to work in all of our industries, but particularly women and particularly in arts and freelance industries, is getting our schools fully opened. We can do it safely. It's an absolute prerequisite for so many women to get back into their careers full time. And in the arts industry, whether it's low income workers, whether it's gig workers, freelance workers, we absolutely need that vital component. And the same thing that can open our schools can also open our theaters and cultural institutions, which is leaning into the science and understanding that we can reopen very safely right now, do it robustly, and get people working again.
Great, and happy belated Mother's Day.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for being here. I think this is all of the time we have. Thank you for your participation, your candid answers. I'd like to thank New Yorkers for Culture and Arts for the invitation to moderate tonight. And with that, I'd like to pass it to Lucy Sexton. Lucy, are you here?
I am here, and I want to give a big thank you to you. Jose, Executive Director of the Jose Limon Dance Foundation. Thank you for moderating so wonderfully. Thanks to all of our candidates, not only for joining tonight, but for running for office. It's super important. I want to thank our ASL interpreters, Andrea Afeni and Brandon Kaysen Maddox. I also want to thank Amy Koshpin and the Pratt Manhattan Windows for that wonderful film. Go and see that in the Pratt Manhattan Windows until June 22nd. Learn more about how to run for office yourself. Remember that we are using ranked choice voting, so check out that at vote.nyc so we know how to vote effectively this June. We have a few more upcoming forums, one for Upper Manhattan and one for some 4 council districts in Brooklyn. Please go to nyforca.org to find out more. Finally, I just want to thank my team. They do a spectacular job. Melanie Green, Lori Berg, Tara Sheena, Regine Peters, and Matt Chilton. Be well, everyone. Take care. And please remember to vote and tell your friends to vote. Till later.
Good night, everyone.